Question 1. What factors determine a driving instructor's professional judgment when advising a learner driver in the Australian Capital Territory act on their readiness for the practical driving test, considering the learner's expressed eagerness and the instructor's ethical obligations? Option A. The minimum number of supervised driving hours completed by the learner, as per ACT licensing requirements. Option B. The learner's enthusiasm for driving and their desire to obtain a license quickly. Option C. The learner's ability to perform basic maneuvers and their expressed confidence in their driving abilities. Option D. A comprehensive assessment of the learner's driving skills against the official ACT practical driving test criteria, including hazard perception and adherence to ACT road rules. Correct answer is D. A comprehensive assessment of the learner's driving skills against the official ACT practical driving test criteria, including hazard perception and adherence to ACT road rules. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driving instructor in the Australian Capital Territory Act by requiring them to assess a learner driver's readiness for their practical driving test. The challenge lies in balancing the learner's eagerness to progress with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to ACT road rules. A driving instructor must exercise sound professional judgment to ensure the learner is not only technically proficient, but also possesses the necessary hazard perception and decision-making skills to drive independently and safely within the ACT's specific road environment. This requires a deep understanding of the ACT's licensing framework and the criteria assessed in the practical driving test. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves a comprehensive assessment of the learner's driving skills against the official ACT practical driving test criteria. This includes evaluating their ability to consistently apply safe driving practices, demonstrate effective hazard perception and response, and adhere to all ACT road rules and signs. The instructor should conduct a mock test under conditions similar to the actual examination, providing constructive feedback on areas requiring improvement. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the purpose of the ACT's graduated licensing system and the requirements of the practical driving test, which are designed to ensure drivers are competent and safe. The Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, and the ACT government's driver licensing guidelines mandate that individuals demonstrate a certain level of proficiency before being granted a full license. By focusing on these specific criteria, the instructor acts ethically and professionally, prioritizing public safety and fulfilling their duty of care. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach is to approve the learner for the test based solely on their ability to perform basic maneuvers like parking and turning, without a thorough evaluation of their hazard perception and decision-making in varied traffic conditions. This fails to meet the ACT's requirement for drivers to demonstrate a comprehensive understanding of road safety and the ability to anticipate and react to potential dangers, as outlined in the ACT's driver licensing standards. Another incorrect approach is to approve the learner based on their confidence and enthusiasm, assuming that these qualities will compensate for any minor skill deficiencies. Confidence is important, but it must be underpinned by demonstrable competence and adherence to road rules. The ACT's licensing framework prioritizes safety and skill over subjective assessments of attitude. A further incorrect approach is to approve the learner because they have met the minimum number of supervised driving hours stipulated by ACT law, without independently verifying their actual readiness for the test. While supervised hours are a prerequisite, they do not automatically guarantee competence. The instructor's professional responsibility extends beyond ticking boxes to ensuring genuine driving capability and safety awareness, as mandated by the ACT's commitment to road safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this field should adopt a systematic and evidence-based approach. This involves 1. Understanding the specific requirements of the ACT practical driving test and the relevant ACT road rules and regulations. 2. Conducting thorough and objective assessments that cover all aspects of the test criteria, including hazard perception, decision-making, and adherence to rules. 3. Providing clear, constructive, and actionable feedback to learners, focusing on areas for improvement. 4. Prioritizing road safety and public well-being above all else, even if it means delaying a learner's test. 5. Maintaining professional integrity by making decisions based on competence and safety, rather than external pressures or subjective impressions. Question 2. Strategic planning requires a driver in the Australian Capital Territory Act to anticipate and react appropriately to various road conditions and situations. If you are driving on a two-lane road in Canberra and see an approaching police car with its lights and siren activated, what is the most appropriate and legally compliant action to take according to the ACT road rules? Option A. Slow down significantly but remain in your lane until the emergency vehicle has passed. Option B. Continue driving at the normal speed to avoid disrupting traffic flow. Option C. Pull over to the right as far as practicable and stop your vehicle. Option D. Pull over to the left as far as practicable and stop your vehicle until the emergency vehicle has passed. The correct answer is D. Pull over to the left as far as practicable and stop your vehicle until the emergency vehicle has passed. Explanation. Strategic planning requires a thorough understanding of the Australian Capital Territory Act, road rules and safe driving practices to ensure the safety of all road users. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it tests the applicant's ability to apply theoretical knowledge of road rules to a practical, albeit hypothetical, driving situation, requiring judgment and adherence to specific ACT legislation. The core of the challenge lies in correctly identifying the immediate priority and the appropriate action based on the ACT's road rules, particularly concerning yielding to emergency vehicles. The correct approach involves recognizing that an approaching emergency vehicle with activated lights and sirens has absolute priority on ACT roads. This means all other vehicles must take immediate and safe action to yield the right-of-way. Specifically, drivers must pull over to the left as far as practicable and stop until the emergency vehicle has passed. This is mandated by the Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, which clearly outlines the obligations of drivers when encountering emergency vehicles. Adhering to this rule is not only a legal requirement, but also an ethical imperative to facilitate the critical work of emergency services and prevent potential accidents. An incorrect approach would be to continue driving at the normal speed or to pull over to the right. Continuing at the normal speed directly contravenes the ACT road rules, obstructing the emergency vehicle and potentially delaying vital response times, which is a serious regulatory failure and an ethical lapse. Pulling over to the right is also incorrect as it does not provide the clearest and safest path for the emergency vehicle to pass and may create further hazards. Another incorrect approach would be to slow down but not pull over, which still impedes the emergency vehicle and fails to meet the requirement of yielding the right-of-way as stipulated by ACT legislation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes immediate safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Identifying the critical cue, emergency vehicle lights/sirens. 2. Recalling the relevant ACT road rule pertaining to emergency vehicles. 3. Assessing the immediate environment for the safest way to comply with the rule, pulling over to the left and stopping. 4. Executing the action decisively and safely. Question 3. The control framework reveals that when driving in the Australian Capital Territory Act, a driver notices a persistent, loud grinding noise emanating from the front wheels, accompanied by a slight pull to the left when braking. Which of the following actions best demonstrates adherence to ACT road transport legislation and safe driving practices? Option A. Proceed to the destination and address the issue later, as the vehicle passed its last roadworthy inspection a few months ago. Option B. Continue driving cautiously to the nearest mechanic, assuming the noise is minor and the vehicle is still safe enough to operate for a short distance. Option C. Immediately pull over to a safe location, cease driving, and arrange for the vehicle to be inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Option D. Turn up the radio to drown out the noise and focus on reaching the destination, as the vehicle is still moving and appears to be under control. The correct answer is C. Immediately pull over to a safe location, cease driving, and arrange for the vehicle to be inspected by a qualified mechanic before continuing the journey. Explanation. The control framework reveals that navigating the Australian Capital Territory Act road rules requires a nuanced understanding of driver responsibilities, particularly concerning vehicle condition and roadworthiness. This scenario is professionally challenging because a driver must balance the immediate need to reach a destination with the paramount legal and ethical obligation to ensure their vehicle does not pose a danger to themselves or others. Misjudging the severity of a vehicle issue or the potential consequences can lead to immediate safety risks, traffic violations, and potential accidents. The best approach involves prioritizing safety and compliance with ACT road transport legislation. This means immediately assessing the vehicle's condition to determine if it is safe to drive. If a critical safety issue is identified, such as compromised braking or steering, the driver must cease driving and arrange for the vehicle to be repaired or towed. This aligns with the ACT Road Transport Vehicle Registration Regulation 2000, which mandates that vehicles must be maintained in a roadworthy condition. The ethical imperative is to prevent harm, which overrides the convenience of continuing a journey in an unsafe vehicle. An incorrect approach would be to continue driving, despite a noticeable issue with the vehicle's braking system. This directly contravenes the ACT's requirement for vehicles to be maintained in a safe operating condition and demonstrates a disregard for the safety of other road users. Such an action could lead to a loss of control, resulting in an accident, and would expose the driver to penalties under ACT road transport law for operating an unroadworthy vehicle. Another incorrect approach is to assume that a minor noise from the engine compartment is insignificant and can be ignored until the driver reaches their destination. While the noise might not immediately impair driving, it could be an early indicator of a developing mechanical failure that could escalate rapidly and compromise the vehicle's safety. This demonstrates a failure to proactively manage vehicle maintenance and a potential breach of the duty of care owed to other road users. A further incorrect approach is to rely on the assumption that, because the vehicle passed a recent inspection, it is automatically safe to drive regardless of any new or developing issues. Vehicle inspections are a snapshot in time, and mechanical components can degrade or fail between inspections. Drivers have an ongoing responsibility to ensure their vehicle remains roadworthy. Professionals should adopt a decision-making process that begins with a thorough assessment of any perceived vehicle issue. If there is any doubt about the vehicle's safety, the default action should be to stop driving and seek professional mechanical advice. This proactive stance, prioritizing safety and legal compliance, is the cornerstone of responsible vehicle operation in the ACT. Question 4. Process analysis reveals that during a practical driving assessment in the Australian Capital Territory Act, a driver approaches an intersection with a pedestrian signal showing a flashing "Don't Walk" symbol. The driver hesitates for a moment before proceeding safely through the intersection, as the pedestrian has not yet entered the roadway. What is the most appropriate course of action for the ACT driving examiner? Option A. Fail the driver immediately for hesitation at an intersection, regardless of the safe outcome of the maneuver. Option B. Immediately instruct the driver to stop and reverse back to the intersection to reevaluate their decision-making process. Option C. Allow the driver to proceed and continue observing their overall performance, noting the hesitation as part of the assessment of their decision-making in dynamic situations. Option D. Allow the driver to proceed without further observation, dismissing the hesitation as insignificant. The correct answer is C. Allow the driver to proceed and continue observing their overall performance, noting the hesitation as part of the assessment of their decision-making in dynamic situations. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a driver's desire to complete their test efficiently and the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the Australian Capital Territory Act road rules. The examiner must exercise sound judgment to ensure the test accurately reflects the driver's competency in real-world driving conditions, without compromising safety or fairness. The challenge lies in balancing the need for a comprehensive assessment with the practicalities of a timed test. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves the examiner prioritizing the observation of the driver's ability to safely and legally navigate a variety of traffic situations, including those that may arise unexpectedly. This means allowing the driver to demonstrate their skills in a naturalistic manner, even if it means deviating from a pre-planned route or taking slightly longer to assess a particular maneuver. The ACT road rules and the driver testing procedures manual emphasize assessing a driver's capacity to make safe decisions and comply with all traffic laws. Allowing the driver to proceed through the intersection, even with a slight hesitation, provides valuable insight into their decision-making process and their ability to react to changing conditions, which is a core objective of the test. This approach directly aligns with the ACT government's commitment to road safety and the licensing of competent drivers. Incorrect approach is analysis, allowing the driver to proceed immediately without further observation after a slight hesitation, despite the presence of a pedestrian, fails to adequately assess the driver's awareness of vulnerable road users and their ability to yield appropriately. This neglects the fundamental principle of prioritizing pedestrian safety, a critical element of the ACT road rules. Instructing the driver to stop and reverse back to the intersection to reevaluate their decision is an overly punitive measure that does not reflect how a driver would typically react in a real-world situation. It introduces an artificial scenario that does not test the driver's ability to manage the situation as it unfolds and could unfairly penalize them. This approach deviates from assessing natural driving behavior, failing the driver immediately based solely on a minor hesitation, without allowing them to complete the maneuver or demonstrate their overall competency, is an overly strict interpretation of the testing criteria. While hesitation can be a sign of uncertainty, it does not automatically equate to a failure if the driver ultimately makes a safe and legal decision, as evidenced by proceeding without incident. This approach fails to consider the nuances of driver assessment and the possibility of minor, correctable uncertainties. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety, fairness, and accurate assessment. This involves 1. Understanding the core objectives of the test as outlined in the ACT Driver Testing Procedures Manual. 2. Observing the driver's actions in real time, considering the context of the traffic environment. 3. Evaluating decisions based on whether they are safe, legal, and demonstrate competency, rather than solely on minor hesitations. 4. Applying a consistent and objective standard for assessment, allowing for minor uncertainties that do not compromise safety. 5. Recognizing that the test aims to simulate real-world driving, not to create artificial challenges. Question 5. System analysis indicates that when approaching an intersection in the Australian Capital Territory, ACT, a driver observes a pedestrian at the edge of the footpath, looking towards the road but not yet stepping onto the crossing. The pedestrian's body language is somewhat ambiguous, and it is unclear if they intend to cross immediately. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant action for the driver to take? Option A. Honk the horn to alert the pedestrian that a vehicle is approaching. Option B. Slow down and be prepared to stop, yielding to the pedestrian if they enter the crossing. Option C. Proceed through the intersection at a normal speed, assuming the pedestrian will wait. Option D. Stop abruptly in the middle of the intersection to avoid any potential conflict. The correct answer is B. Slow down and be prepared to stop, yielding to the pedestrian if they enter the crossing. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for novice drivers in the Australian Capital Territory ACT, where they must demonstrate an understanding of road rules beyond simple memorization. The professional challenge lies in interpreting the intent of the road rules and applying them to a dynamic, real-world situation involving other road users. Careful judgment is required to prioritize safety and compliance, especially when faced with a situation that could be ambiguous. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves a comprehensive understanding of the ACT road rules, specifically those pertaining to intersections and yielding. This approach prioritizes safety by assuming the most cautious interpretation of the situation. It involves recognizing that the pedestrian has the right of way and that the driver must yield to ensure their safety, even if the pedestrian's actions are not immediately clear. This aligns with the fundamental principle of the ACT road rules to protect vulnerable road users and avoid collisions. The ACT Road Rules Handbook emphasizes the driver's responsibility to give way to pedestrians at crossings and in situations where their path may intersect. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to proceed through the intersection assuming the pedestrian will stop. This demonstrates a failure to understand the ACT road rules regarding pedestrian right-of-way and prioritizes the driver's desire to proceed over the safety of a vulnerable road user. This could lead to a dangerous situation and a breach of traffic law. Another incorrect approach is to honk the horn to alert the pedestrian. While intended to warn, this action can startle a pedestrian, potentially causing them to react unpredictably and increase the risk of an accident. It also fails to acknowledge the pedestrian's right-of-way and instead attempts to influence their behavior through an aggressive maneuver, which is contrary to the cooperative and safe driving principles promoted by ACT road safety initiatives. A further incorrect approach is to stop abruptly in the middle of the intersection. While stopping is generally safer than proceeding, stopping without a clear reason or in a manner that obstructs other traffic can create a hazard. This approach lacks the nuanced understanding of yielding and instead resorts to an extreme reaction that could impede traffic flow and potentially cause confusion for other drivers. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a proactive and defensive driving mindset. This involves anticipating potential hazards, understanding the rights and responsibilities of all road users, and always erring on the side of caution. When faced with ambiguity, the decision-making process should always prioritize the safety of the most vulnerable party and adhere strictly to the letter and spirit of the ACT road rules. This involves a continuous assessment of the environment and a commitment to safe and lawful conduct. Question 6. Governance review demonstrates that a driver testing officer in the Australian Capital Territory, ACT, encounters an applicant who appears visibly distressed and expresses significant personal urgency to complete their driving test immediately, citing a critical family matter. Considering the paramount importance of road safety and the integrity of the licensing process under ACT regulations, what is the most appropriate course of action for the testing officer? Option A. Inform the applicant that the test cannot proceed due to their visible distress and unilaterally reschedule it for a later date without consulting official ACT rescheduling procedures. Option B. Offer to provide subtle guidance or overlook minor driving errors during the test to help the applicant pass, given their expressed personal circumstances. Option C. Conduct the driving test as scheduled, objectively assessing the applicant's performance against the ACT road rules and safe driving practices, while remaining professional and impartial. Option D. Allow the applicant to proceed with the test despite their visible distress, as their personal urgency and stated family matter warrant immediate accommodation. The correct answer is C. Conduct the driving test as scheduled, objectively assessing the applicant's performance against the ACT road rules and safe driving practices, while remaining professional and impartial. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a driver's desire to obtain a license and the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the Australian Capital Territory Act, road rules. The applicant's perceived urgency and potential emotional state require the testing officer to maintain strict impartiality and uphold the integrity of the licensing process. Careful judgment is required to ensure that personal circumstances do not influence the objective assessment of the applicant's driving competency and knowledge of ACT road laws. Correct approach analysis. The approach that represents best professional practice involves the testing officer strictly adhering to the established ACT driver testing procedures and criteria. This means conducting the test as scheduled, objectively assessing the applicant's performance against the official ACT road rules and safe driving practices, and making a decision based solely on that assessment. This is correct because the Road Transport Driver Licensing, Regulation 2002, Act, and associated ACT driver testing guidelines mandate an impartial and objective evaluation of a driver's ability to operate a vehicle safely and in compliance with ACT laws. The testing officer's role is to assess competence, not to accommodate personal circumstances that could compromise safety or the fairness of the process for other applicants. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach involves the testing officer allowing the applicant to proceed with the test, despite clear indications of distress that might impair their ability to drive safely. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound, as it prioritizes the applicant's immediate desire over the safety of the applicant and other road users, violating the core principle of ensuring only competent drivers are licensed. The Road Transport Driver Licensing, Regulation 2002, Act, implicitly requires that a driver be in a fit state to drive. Another incorrect approach is for the testing officer to unilaterally decide to postpone the test without following the ACT's official procedures for rescheduling or cancellation. While the officer might perceive a need to accommodate the applicant, deviating from established protocols undermines the consistency and fairness of the testing system. The ACT Road Transport Authority has specific guidelines for managing test appointments, and bypassing these can lead to administrative issues and questions of procedural fairness. A further incorrect approach is for the testing officer to offer to help the applicant by subtly guiding them through the test or overlooking minor errors. This is a severe breach of professional ethics and ACT licensing regulations. The purpose of the test is to assess independent competency, and any form of assistance compromises the validity of the assessment and the integrity of the licensing process. This directly contravenes the requirement for an objective evaluation, as stipulated by the ACT Road Transport Authority. Professional reasoning. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Objective assessment. Continuously evaluate the situation against established criteria and regulations. 2. Procedural adherence. Follow all documented procedures for testing, rescheduling, or handling unforeseen circumstances. 3. Impartiality. Ensure personal feelings or external pressures do not influence professional judgment. 4. Risk management. Identify and mitigate any risks to public safety. In this scenario, the testing officer must recognize that the applicant's distress, if significant enough to impair driving, presents a safety risk. The correct course of action is to proceed with the test if the applicant is deemed fit to drive according to ACT standards, or to follow the ACT's official procedures for postponement or cancellation if they are not, ensuring the applicant is informed of the next steps according to the established process. Question 7. When driving on a suburban street in the Australian Capital Territory Act, and you observe a child playing near the curb with a ball that has just rolled into the road, what is the most prudent course of action to take? Option A. Immediately reduce your speed significantly and prepare to stop, maintaining a vigilant watch on the child and the ball. Option B. Swerve into the adjacent lane to create more space between your vehicle and the curb. Option C. Apply your brakes sharply and sound your horn to alert the child and any accompanying adults. Option D. Continue at your current speed, assuming the child will retrieve the ball without entering the road further. The correct answer is A. Immediately reduce your speed significantly and prepare to stop, maintaining a vigilant watch on the child and the ball. Explanation. The scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a driver to make an immediate decision in a dynamic traffic environment, balancing their understanding of road rules with the need to maintain safety and avoid potential hazards. The driver's perception of a potential hazard, even if not explicitly defined by a specific traffic sign or rule, necessitates a proactive and safe response. Careful judgment is required to assess the situation, predict potential actions of other road users, and choose the safest course of action without causing undue disruption or danger. The best approach involves a cautious and defensive driving strategy. This means anticipating potential dangers and acting to mitigate them, even if the exact nature of the danger is not fully clear. In this situation, the driver should prioritize slowing down and preparing to stop or take evasive action. This aligns with the fundamental principles of safe driving taught in the Australian Capital Territory Act road rules, which emphasize hazard perception and the need to drive defensively. Specifically, the ACT Road Rules 2002, under Part 12, General Rules About Driving, mandate that drivers must drive with due care and attention and not endanger themselves or others. This proactive slowing down demonstrates adherence to this principle by acknowledging a perceived risk and taking immediate steps to reduce potential harm. An incorrect approach would be to continue at the current speed without altering it. This fails to acknowledge the driver's perception of a potential hazard, thereby disregarding the principle of driving with due care and attention. Could lead to a situation where the driver is unable to react in time if the perceived hazard materializes, potentially causing an accident. Another incorrect approach would be to brake suddenly and aggressively without clear justification. While braking is a reaction to a hazard, sudden braking without sufficient reason or warning to following traffic can itself create a dangerous situation, potentially leading to a rear-end collision. This action, while reactive, does not demonstrate the controlled and measured response expected of a safe driver. A further incorrect approach would be to swerve to avoid the perceived hazard without first assessing if it is safe to do so. Swerving can be a dangerous maneuver, especially in traffic, as it can lead to collisions with other vehicles or objects, or loss of control of the vehicle. This action prioritizes avoiding the perceived hazard over ensuring overall safety and adherence to road rules. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves a continuous cycle of hazard identification, risk assessment, and response selection. Drivers should constantly scan their environment, anticipate potential problems, and choose the safest and most appropriate action. This often means erring on the side of caution, even if it means a slight delay or inconvenience to prevent a more serious outcome. The ACT road rules and defensive driving principles provide a framework for this decision-making, emphasizing proactive safety measures. Question 8. The assessment process reveals that a learner driver in the Australian Capital Territory Act, while navigating a residential street, repeatedly drifts towards the center line of the road, indicating a potential lack of lane discipline. The supervising driver notices this behavior occurring on multiple occasions during the drive. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the supervising driver to take? Option A. Immediately end the supervised driving session and inform the learner that they are not ready to practice further. Option B. React with frustration and sternly tell the learner they are driving dangerously and need to pay more attention. Option C. Calmly intervene, gently correct the steering, and explain the importance of maintaining lane position according to ACT road rules, referencing the need to stay within the marked lane to avoid oncoming traffic. Option D. Continue observing without intervention, assuming the learner will eventually self-correct their steering as they gain more experience. The correct answer is C. Calmly intervene, gently correct the steering, and explain the importance of maintaining lane position according to ACT road rules, referencing the need to stay within the marked lane to avoid oncoming traffic. Explanation. The assessment process reveals a scenario where a learner driver, under supervision, demonstrates a concerning pattern of behavior that deviates from safe driving practices and potentially breaches the Australian Capital Territory Act road rules. The challenge lies in the supervisor's responsibility to intervene effectively and appropriately without causing undue distress or compromising the learning environment, while ensuring adherence to the ACT's graduated licensing system and road safety regulations. The supervisor must balance the immediate need for safety with the long-term goal of developing a competent and responsible driver. The correct approach involves the supervisor immediately and calmly intervening to correct the unsafe behavior, explaining the specific ACT road rule being contravened, and reinforcing the correct procedure. This aligns with the ACT's road transport road rules, Regulation 2017, which mandates that supervisors of learner drivers must ensure the learner complies with all road rules and drives safely. By directly addressing the behavior and providing clear, rule-based guidance, the supervisor fulfills their duty of care and educates the learner in a practical, immediate context, which is crucial for effective skill development under the ACT's graduated licensing system. An incorrect approach would be to ignore the behavior, assuming the learner will eventually self-correct, or that it is not significant enough to warrant intervention. This fails to uphold the supervisor's responsibility under ACT law and significantly compromises road safety, potentially leading to an accident or a fine for the learner and supervisor. Another incorrect approach is to react with anger or excessive criticism. While the behavior is unsafe, an overly harsh response can create anxiety and hinder the learner's ability to absorb instruction, undermining the purpose of supervised driving practice in the ACT. Furthermore, simply stopping the car and ending the lesson without explanation or correction does not provide the necessary learning opportunity and fails to address the root cause of the unsafe behavior, thus not fulfilling the educational aspect of supervised driving. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety, followed by clear communication and education. This involves 1. Immediate assessment of the risk posed by the behavior. 2. Calm and direct intervention, explaining the specific rule or safe practice. 3. Providing constructive feedback and demonstrating the correct action. 4. Reinforcing the importance of adherence to ACT road rules for safety and legal compliance. Question 9. Operational review demonstrates that a driver in the Australian Capital Territory Act is en route to a destination when their young child in the back seat begins to cry inconsolably. The driver is concerned the child's distress is becoming a significant distraction. Considering the road transport road rules, Regulation 2017 Act, what is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the driver? Option A. Pull over immediately on the side of busy road, even if it obstructs traffic, to address the child's distress. Option B. Immediately pull over to the side of the road in the nearest safe and legal location to attend to the child. Option C. Ignore the child's crying and focus solely on reaching the destination as quickly as possible. Option D. Continue driving to the destination while attempting to soothe the child. Correct answer is B. Immediately pull over to the side of the road in the nearest safe and legal location to attend to the child. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge for a driver in the Australian Capital Territory, ACT, due to the critical importance of adhering to road rules designed for public safety. The driver's actions, even if perceived as minor or well-intentioned, can have significant consequences if they contravene established regulations. The core challenge lies in balancing immediate perceived needs with the overarching legal framework governing road use in the ACT. Careful judgment is required to ensure all actions are compliant and contribute to a safe road environment. Correct approach analysis. The approach that represents best professional practice involves the driver immediately ceasing their actions and proceeding to a safe location to address the situation. This is correct because the Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, mandates that drivers must obey all traffic signals and signs, and not drive in a manner that causes danger to other road users. Stopping the vehicle in a safe place allows the driver to attend to the child's needs without obstructing traffic or creating a hazard, thereby complying with the fundamental duty of care and the specific provisions of ACT road rules regarding safe driving and stopping. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves continuing to drive while attempting to comfort the child. This is a regulatory failure because it directly violates the principle of maintaining proper control of the vehicle and undivided attention to the road. The Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, implicitly requires drivers to be in a position to respond safely to changing road conditions, which is compromised when distracted by attending to a passenger. This action creates a significant risk of an accident. Another incorrect approach is to pull over immediately on the side of a busy road without assessing the safety of the location. While stopping is necessary, doing so without considering traffic flow, visibility, and potential hazards for both the driver and other road users is a failure to exercise due care. The ACT road rules, while not explicitly detailing every stopping scenario, are underpinned by a general duty to avoid creating danger. Stopping in an unsafe location can impede traffic, create a collision risk, or expose the driver and child to danger from passing vehicles. A further incorrect approach is to ignore the child's distress and continue driving to the intended destination. This is ethically and regulatorily unacceptable. While the primary focus of driving is adherence to road rules, the duty of care extends to ensuring the safety and well-being of passengers, especially a child. Ignoring a child's distress can lead to escalating behavioral issues that further distract the driver, and in extreme cases, could be considered negligent if it contributes to an unsafe driving situation. The ACT road rules, while focused on traffic, operate within a broader legal and ethical framework that prioritizes safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and regulatory compliance. This involves 1. Immediate assessment of the situation. Is the current action safe and legal? 2. Prioritization of safety. If an immediate safety concern arises, like a distressed child, the driver must take steps to mitigate it without compromising road safety. 3. Regulatory adherence. Always consider the specific road rules of the ACT. 4. Seeking safe solutions. If a situation requires attention, find the safest and most compliant way to address it, which often means pulling over in a designated safe area. 5. Ethical considerations. While not always explicitly codified in road rules, ethical duties of care, especially towards vulnerable passengers, are paramount. Question 10. Cost-benefit analysis shows that a driver in the Australian Capital Territory ACT is considering exceeding the speed limit by 15 km/h in a 60 km/h zone. The ACT's Road Transport Road Rules, Regulation 2017 specifies a fine of $200 for this offense. Furthermore, it is estimated that such an offense could lead to an average annual increase of $150 in car insurance premiums for the next 3 years. If the driver chooses to adhere to the speed limit, the direct cost is $0, and the estimated insurance premium remains unchanged. What is the total financial cost difference over 3 years between adhering to the speed limit and exceeding it by 15 km/h? Option A. Adhering to the speed limit results in a total financial saving of $550 over 3 years compared to exceeding the speed limit. Option B. Exceeding the speed limit results in a total additional cost of $650 over 3 years compared to adhering to the speed limit. Option C. Adhering to the speed limit results in a total financial saving of $650 over 3 years compared to exceeding the speed limit. Option D. Exceeding the speed limit results in a total additional cost of $350 over 3 years compared to adhering to the speed limit. Correct answer is C. Adhering to the speed limit results in a total financial saving of $650 over 3 years compared to exceeding the speed limit. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for new drivers in the Australian Capital Territory Act, involving the practical application of road rules and the financial implications of noncompliance. The professional challenge lies in accurately calculating the potential costs associated with different driving behaviors, specifically regarding speeding fines and the associated increase in insurance premiums, and then making a reasoned decision based on this analysis. It requires understanding not only the direct financial penalties, but also the indirect, long-term financial consequences. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves a comprehensive cost-benefit analysis that considers both immediate penalties and future financial impacts. This approach accurately calculates the direct cost of a speeding fine based on ACT legislation, and then estimates the likely increase in insurance premiums over a specified period, such as 1 year. By quantifying these costs, a driver can make an informed decision about the financial prudence of adhering to speed limits versus the risk of incurring penalties and increased insurance expenses. This aligns with the ACT's Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2017, and the Road Transport, Traffic Management, Regulation 2017, which aim to promote road safety through deterrence and financial penalties, and with general principles of responsible financial management. Incorrect approach is analysis. One incorrect approach is to solely consider the immediate fine amount without factoring in the potential increase in insurance premiums. This fails to acknowledge the indirect, often more significant, long-term financial consequences of a speeding offense. Insurance companies in the ACT typically view speeding as an indicator of higher risk, leading to premium adjustments. Ignoring this aspect provides an incomplete and misleading cost-benefit picture. Another incorrect approach is to assume that the cost of a speeding fine is a fixed, one-time expense that will not affect future financial outlays. This overlooks the fact that a speeding conviction can remain on a driver's record and influence insurance assessments for several years, leading to cumulative financial losses beyond the initial fine. A further incorrect approach is to base the decision on anecdotal evidence or the perceived likelihood of being caught, rather than on a structured calculation of potential costs. This subjective assessment disregards the objective financial realities and the regulatory framework designed to enforce safe driving practices. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a data-driven approach to decision-making. This involves identifying all relevant costs, both direct and indirect, and quantifying them where possible. In the context of driving, this means understanding the penalty structure for speeding offenses in the ACT, as well as the impact of such offenses on insurance costs. A structured approach, such as the one outlined in the correct analysis, allows for a clear comparison of the financial implications of compliant versus non-compliant behavior, leading to more responsible and informed choices. Question 11. The performance metrics show a decline in learner-driver pass rates for the ACT probationary license. Considering the Australian Capital Territory's Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2002, which of the following approaches would be the most appropriate response to address this trend? Option A. Immediately increase the stringency and difficulty of the practical driving test to ensure only the most capable drivers pass. Option B. Lower the pass mark for the practical driving test to improve the overall pass rate and reduce learner frustration. Option C. Shift the primary focus of driver education and assessment towards theoretical knowledge, de-emphasizing practical driving skills. Option D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the current driver training curriculum and practical assessment criteria, comparing them against the specific competencies required by the ACT's licensing standards, and seeking feedback from instructors and recent learners. The correct answer is D. Conduct a comprehensive review of the current driver training curriculum and practical assessment criteria, comparing them against the specific competencies required by the ACT's licensing standards, and seeking feedback from instructors and recent learners. Explanation. The performance metrics show a concerning trend in learner-driver pass rates in the Australian Capital Territory Act. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires a nuanced understanding of the ACT's road rules and driver competency assessment standards, balancing the need to maintain rigorous safety standards with ensuring fair and effective training. A superficial interpretation of the data could lead to either overly strict or overly lenient adjustments, both of which have significant implications for public safety and the integrity of the licensing process. Careful judgment is required to identify the root causes of the performance trend and implement appropriate, evidence-based interventions. The approach that represents best professional practice involves a comprehensive review of the training curriculum and assessment methods against the ACT's road transport, driver licensing, Regulation 2002, and associated ACT driver licensing standards. This includes analyzing the specific areas where learners are failing, cross-referencing these with the prescribed competencies for a probationary license, and evaluating whether the current training adequately prepares them for these specific requirements. It also necessitates considering feedback from both instructors and recently tested learners to identify potential gaps or ambiguities in instruction or assessment. This approach is correct because it directly addresses the regulatory framework governing driver licensing in the ACT, ensuring that any proposed changes are aligned with the objective of producing safe and competent drivers as mandated by ACT law. It prioritizes a data-driven, yet contextually aware, evaluation of the training and assessment process. An incorrect approach would be to immediately implement a significant increase in the difficulty of the practical driving test. This fails to acknowledge that the issue might lie with the training provided, not necessarily the inherent difficulty of the test itself. It could lead to a situation where competent drivers are unfairly penalized, and it does not address the underlying reasons for learner underperformance, potentially leading to continued high failure rates or a decline in the number of licensed drivers without a corresponding improvement in safety. Another incorrect approach would be to relax the assessment criteria for the practical driving test to artificially boost pass rates. This is ethically and regulatorily unsound. The ACT's licensing standards are designed to ensure a minimum level of competency to protect all road users. Lowering these standards would compromise public safety and undermine the credibility of the ACT driver licensing system, violating the spirit and letter of the Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2002. A further incorrect approach would be to focus solely on theoretical knowledge without addressing practical application. While theoretical knowledge is important, the ACT driver licensing process heavily emphasizes practical skills and hazard perception. A shift away from practical assessment would not adequately prepare learners for the realities of driving on ACT roads and would fail to meet the competency requirements outlined in the regulations. The professional reasoning process for similar situations should involve a systematic evaluation of performance data, a thorough understanding of the relevant regulatory framework, in this case, ACT road transport legislation and licensing standards, consultation with stakeholders, e.g., driving instructors, licensing authorities, and the development of targeted interventions based on identified root causes. This iterative process of analysis, intervention, and re-evaluation is crucial for maintaining the effectiveness and integrity of the driver licensing system. Question 12. The evaluation methodology shows that when assessing a driver's ability to navigate a busy, multi-lane intersection in Canberra, ACT, which of the following approaches best reflects the requirements of the Australian Capital Territory road rules and safe driving practices? Option A. The driver demonstrates a thorough understanding of priority rules, correctly observes all traffic signals and signs, maintains appropriate speed, and proceeds only when it is safe and legal to do so, yielding to other vehicles as required by ACT law. Option B. The driver proceeds through the intersection as quickly as possible once the traffic light turns green, prioritizing speed over meticulous observation of other road users. Option C. The driver is penalized for being overly cautious and waiting for an extended period to proceed, even if they are correctly yielding to other traffic. Option D. The driver is permitted to proceed if they appear confident, even if they have momentarily failed to give way to a vehicle that had priority according to ACT road rules. The correct answer is A. The driver demonstrates a thorough understanding of priority rules, correctly observes all traffic signals and signs, maintains appropriate speed, and proceeds only when it is safe and legal to do so, yielding to other vehicles as required by ACT law. Explanation: the evaluation methodology shows that assessing a driver's ability to navigate complex urban intersections in the Australian Capital Territory Act requires a nuanced approach that prioritizes safety and adherence to road rules above all else. This scenario is professionally challenging because it tests a driver's real-time decision-making under pressure, where a minor error can have significant consequences. The examiner must accurately gauge the driver's understanding of priority rules, their ability to anticipate other road users' actions, and their commitment to safe driving practices, all within a dynamic environment. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of the driver's ability to safely and legally negotiate the intersection. This includes observing their speed control, their correct positioning within the lane, their clear observation of all traffic signals and signs, and their decisive, yet safe, action when it is their turn to proceed. Specifically, the driver must demonstrate an understanding of the ACT's road rules regarding priority at intersections, such as giving way to vehicles already in the intersection or those on their right at uncontrolled intersections, and obeying traffic light signals. This approach is correct because it directly aligns with the core objectives of the ACT road rules and the driver licensing standards, which are to ensure that all licensed drivers possess the necessary skills and knowledge to operate a vehicle safely and responsibly within the ACT. An incorrect approach would be to focus solely on the speed at which the driver clears the intersection. While speed is a factor in safe driving, prioritizing speed over correct observation and adherence to priority rules is a significant regulatory failure. The ACT road rules mandate that drivers give way appropriately, regardless of how quickly they might otherwise be able to proceed. Another incorrect approach would be to allow the driver to proceed if they appear confident, even if they have technically failed to give way correctly. This demonstrates a lack of adherence to the strict requirements of the ACT road rules and compromises the safety of other road users, which is ethically unacceptable for an examiner. Finally, an approach that penalizes the driver for being overly cautious and waiting for an extended period, even if they are correctly yielding, would also be incorrect. While efficiency is desirable, safety and compliance with road rules are paramount in the ACT licensing process. Professional decision-making in such situations requires a systematic evaluation process. Examiners must be trained to identify specific breaches of the ACT road rules and to assess the potential risk associated with each action. They should use a checklist or scoring system that directly reflects the ACT's driver licensing competencies, ensuring consistency and fairness. The decision to pass or fail a candidate should be based on objective criteria derived from the road rules and the practical driving test standards, rather than subjective impressions of confidence or speed. Question 13. Analysis of a scenario at pedestrian crossing in the Australian Capital Territory Act, where a driver approaches and observes a pedestrian standing on the footpath, looking towards the crossing but not yet stepping onto it. The pedestrian appears to be considering crossing. What is the most appropriate and legally compliant action for the driver to take? Option A. Signal the pedestrian to cross while continuing to approach the crossing. Option B. Proceed cautiously, assuming the pedestrian will wait if the vehicle is close. Option C. Hesitate and wait for the pedestrian to make a definitive move before deciding whether to stop. Option D. Stop the vehicle and yield to the pedestrian, allowing them to cross if they choose. The correct answer is D. Stop the vehicle and yield to the pedestrian, allowing them to cross if they choose. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between a driver's immediate desire to proceed and the legal requirement to yield to pedestrians. The driver must exercise judgment and prioritize safety and adherence to the law over personal convenience. The presence of a pedestrian, even if seemingly hesitant, necessitates a cautious approach, as their intentions can be ambiguous and their safety paramount. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves stopping and yielding to the pedestrian. This approach aligns directly with Section 38 of the Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, which mandates that a driver approaching a pedestrian crossing must give way to any pedestrian on the crossing. Even if the pedestrian has not yet entered the crossing, the rule implies a duty of care to allow them to do so safely. This proactive yielding demonstrates a commitment to road safety and legal compliance, preventing potential accidents and upholding the rights of vulnerable road users. Incorrect approaches analysis. proceeding cautiously without stopping fails to meet the legal obligation to yield. While the driver might believe they can safely navigate around the pedestrian, this assumption is risky and contravenes the explicit requirement to give way. This approach prioritizes the driver's convenience over the pedestrian's safety and legal right-of-way. Hesitating and waiting for the pedestrian to make a definitive move before deciding whether to stop is also problematic. This indecisiveness can lead to confusion for the pedestrian and potentially create a dangerous situation if the driver misinterprets the pedestrian's actions or if the pedestrian suddenly decides to cross. It represents a failure to proactively adhere to the law and a lack of commitment to ensuring pedestrian safety. Attempting to signal the pedestrian to cross while still in motion is an unsafe practice. It can be misinterpreted by the pedestrian, and the driver's focus should be on safely controlling their vehicle and yielding, not on directing pedestrian movement. This action could lead to a miscommunication and a collision. Professional reasoning. Professionals should adopt a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance above all else. When approaching a pedestrian crossing, the primary consideration must be the presence and potential actions of pedestrians. The legal framework, such as the Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2017 Act, provides clear guidelines that must be followed. A professional driver should always err on the side of caution, assuming the worst-case scenario for pedestrian behavior and acting to mitigate risk. This involves a proactive approach to yielding, rather than a reactive one, ensuring that pedestrian safety is never compromised. Question 14. The review process indicates a common point of confusion for drivers in the Australian Capital Territory Act regarding right-of-way at intersections. Imagine you are approaching an intersection in the ACT where you intend to turn right. An oncoming vehicle arrives at the intersection at approximately the same time as you and intends to proceed straight ahead. Which of the following actions best reflects the ACT road rules and safe driving practice? Option A. Yield to the oncoming vehicle proceeding straight ahead. Option B. Proceed with your right turn, assuming the oncoming vehicle will also yield. Option C. Honk your horn to alert the oncoming vehicle of your intention to turn right. Option D. Proceed with your right turn if you believe you arrived at the intersection slightly before the oncoming vehicle. The correct answer is A. Yield to the oncoming vehicle proceeding straight ahead. Explanation. The review process indicates a common challenge in the Australian Capital Territory Act, Road Rules, understanding the nuances of yielding at intersections, particularly when multiple vehicles arrive simultaneously or in close succession. This scenario is professionally challenging because misinterpreting right-of-way rules can lead to dangerous situations, collisions, and breaches of the ACT road transport legislation. Careful judgment is required to assess the flow of traffic, the intended movements of other drivers, and the specific signage or road markings present. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and application of the ACT's specific rules regarding yielding at intersections, especially when turning. This includes recognizing that a driver turning right must yield to oncoming traffic, that is, proceeding straight ahead or turning left. Furthermore, if multiple vehicles arrive at an intersection at approximately the same time, the vehicle on the left generally has priority if both are intending to proceed straight ahead. However, when one vehicle is turning right and another is proceeding straight ahead, the turning vehicle must always yield to the straight-through vehicle, regardless of which arrived first. This aligns with the fundamental principle of ensuring the safety of all road users by prioritizing predictable and less complex movements. The ACT Road Transport, Road Rules, Regulation 2017 mandates these yielding requirements to prevent collisions and maintain orderly traffic flow. An incorrect approach would be to assume priority based solely on arriving at the intersection first, without considering the intended direction of travel of other vehicles. This fails to acknowledge the specific requirement for right-turning vehicles to yield to oncoming traffic. Another incorrect approach is to assume that if another vehicle is also turning, the situation is automatically a first-come, first-served scenario, ignoring the hierarchy of yielding established in the ACT road rules. This overlooks the critical distinction between different types of movements at an intersection. A further incorrect approach would be to proceed based on a perceived mutual understanding with another driver, rather than strictly adhering to the codified rules. This introduces an element of unpredictability and risk, as other drivers may not interpret the situation in the same way or may be inexperienced. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and strict adherence to the ACT road transport legislation. This involves 1. Identifying the intersection type and any relevant signage or markings. 2. Determining the intended path of travel for all vehicles involved. 3. Applying the specific ACT road rules for yielding based on these movements, giving precedence to oncoming traffic when turning right and to straight-through traffic when turning. 4. If in doubt, err on the side of caution and yield. Question 15. Performance analysis shows that a driver in the Australian Capital Territory Act is approaching a vehicle that is traveling significantly below the speed limit, causing a reduced following distance for the driver behind them. What is the most appropriate response to maintain road safety and comply with ACT road rules? Option A. Maintain a safe following distance and proceed with caution, prepared to stop if necessary. Option B. Ignore the slower vehicle and continue at the original speed without adjusting. Option C. Accelerate to close the gap and match the speed of the vehicle ahead. Option D. Attempt to overtake the slower vehicle on the left. Correct answer is A. Maintain a safe following distance and proceed with caution, prepared to stop if necessary. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for efficient traffic flow with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the Australian Capital Territory Act road rules. A driver's perception of a minor inconvenience must not override their legal and ethical obligation to drive defensively and predictably, especially when encountering a situation that deviates from the norm. The challenge lies in making a split-second decision that prioritizes safety over perceived expediency, understanding that even seemingly minor deviations can have serious consequences. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves maintaining a safe following distance and proceeding with caution, prepared to stop if necessary. This aligns directly with the ACT road rules that mandate drivers maintain a safe distance from the vehicle ahead who allow for sudden braking or unexpected events. It also reflects the fundamental principle of defensive driving, which is to anticipate potential hazards and react safely. By not accelerating to close the gap, the driver demonstrates an understanding of the risks associated with tailgating and the importance of maintaining control and visibility. This approach prioritizes safety and legal compliance above all else, which is the cornerstone of responsible driving in the ACT. Incorrect approach is analysis. Accelerating to close the gap and match the speed of the vehicle ahead, even if it appears to be driving slowly, is an incorrect approach. This action directly violates the principle of maintaining a safe following distance, increasing the risk of a collision if the slower vehicle brakes unexpectedly. It demonstrates a lack of defensive driving and prioritizes perceived efficiency over safety, which is contrary to ACT road rules and safe driving practices. Attempting to overtake the slower vehicle on the left, if it is not in a designated passing lane or if it is unsafe to do so, is also an incorrect approach. ACT road rules specify when and how overtaking can occur, and undertaking on the left is generally prohibited or restricted to specific circumstances. This action introduces unnecessary risk by moving into a potentially blind spot or an area where the slower vehicle might not expect another vehicle. Ignoring the slower vehicle and continuing at the original speed without adjusting for the reduced visibility or potential hazards is incorrect. This demonstrates a failure to adapt to changing road conditions and a lack of situational awareness. The presence of a slower vehicle can indicate a variety of issues, such as a learner driver, a vehicle with mechanical problems, or someone experiencing a medical emergency, all of which require a driver to be more vigilant and prepared to react. Professional reasoning. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes safety and legal compliance. This involves 1. Situational assessment. Quickly evaluate the road conditions, traffic, and the behavior of other road users. 2. Risk identification. Identify potential hazards such as reduced visibility, unexpected braking, or non-standard driving. 3. Rule adherence. Consult relevant ACT road rules regarding following distance, overtaking, and general safe driving practices. 4. Defensive action. Choose the action that minimizes risk and maximizes control, even if it means a slight delay. 5. Continuous monitoring. Remain vigilant and reassess the situation as it evolves. Question 16. Compliance review shows that a driver in the Australian Capital Territory Act experienced a sudden episode of dizziness and disorientation while driving, which resolved after pulling over and resting for a few minutes. What is the most appropriate immediate action for this driver to take regarding their ability to continue driving? Option A. Drive home and then seek medical advice regarding the episode. Option B. Drive home and schedule a doctor's appointment for later in the week. Option C. Immediately cease driving and seek professional medical assessment to determine fitness to drive. Option D. Continue driving cautiously for a short distance as the symptoms have passed. Correct answer is C. Immediately cease driving and seek professional medical assessment to determine fitness to drive. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires a driver to make a judgment call about their fitness to drive after experiencing a medical event that could impair their ability to operate a vehicle safely. The primary ethical and legal obligation is to public safety, which necessitates a cautious and responsible approach. The challenge lies in balancing personal desire to drive with the potential risk to oneself and others. Correct approach analysis. The best professional approach involves prioritizing safety and adhering strictly to the Australian Capital Territory Act, road transport legislation, and medical advice. This means immediately ceasing to drive and seeking professional medical assessment to determine fitness to drive. The ACT Road Transport, Driver Licensing, Regulation 2002, and the Australian road rules mandate that drivers must be in a fit and proper condition to drive. Experiencing a sudden medical event like dizziness and disorientation, even if temporary, raises significant concerns about a driver's ability to maintain control of a vehicle, react to hazards, and make sound decisions. Therefore, stopping driving and consulting a doctor is the only responsible course of action that aligns with legal requirements and ethical obligations to prevent harm. Incorrect approaches analysis. Continuing to drive, even for a short distance, is professionally unacceptable. This action directly contravenes the ACT's requirement for drivers to be in a fit and proper condition. The potential for the medical event to recur or worsen, while driving poses an immediate and severe risk to the driver and other road users. This demonstrates a failure to uphold the duty of care owed to the public. Driving after a brief rest without seeking medical advice is also professionally unacceptable. While the symptoms may have subsided, the underlying cause remains unknown. Without a medical professional's clearance, there is no certainty that the driver is truly fit to drive. This approach gambles with public safety based on a temporary improvement in symptoms, ignoring the potential for a serious underlying medical condition that could manifest again unexpectedly. Driving and planning to see a doctor later is professionally unacceptable. This approach prioritizes convenience over immediate safety. The period between deciding to drive and seeing a doctor is a high-risk window where an incident could occur. The ACT road transport laws do not permit conditional driving based on future medical consultations. Fitness to drive must be established prior to operating a vehicle. Professional reasoning. Professionals in any field, especially those involving public safety like driving, must adopt a risk-averse approach when faced with uncertainty about their capabilities. The decision-making process should involve 1. Identifying the potential risk to self and others. 2. Consulting relevant regulations and guidelines, in this case, ACT road transport laws and medical advice. 3. Prioritizing safety and legal compliance above personal convenience or desire. 4. Seeking expert opinion, medical assessment, when personal judgment is compromised by a health event. Question 17. Investigation of a suspected hit-and-run incident in the Australian Capital Territory Act leads a police officer to a vehicle parked on a public street, matching the description of the vehicle involved. The officer observes what appears to be fresh damage consistent with the collision and a possible foreign substance on the bumper. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the officer to take regarding the vehicle? Option A. Conduct a visual inspection and search of the vehicle's interior and exterior immediately, believing the observed damage and substance constitute sufficient grounds for an warrantless search. Option B. Secure the vehicle and the immediate surrounding area to preserve potential evidence and immediately commence the process to obtain legal authorization for a search of the vehicle. Option C. Leave the vehicle unattended and proceed to the scene of the suspected hit-and-run to gather further information before returning to deal with the vehicle. Option D. Contact a supervisor via radio and upon receiving verbal confirmation that a search is permissible, proceed to search the vehicle without obtaining formal written authorization. The correct answer is B. Secure the vehicle and the immediate surrounding area to preserve potential evidence, and immediately commence the process to obtain legal authorization for a search of the vehicle. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate need for information with the legal and ethical obligations to protect an individual's privacy and ensure the integrity of an investigation. The officer must act decisively, but also within the bounds of the law, avoiding actions that could compromise evidence or violate rights. The pressure of a potential ongoing incident adds to the complexity, demanding careful judgment under duress. Correct approach analysis. The best professional practice involves immediately securing the scene and any potential evidence, including the vehicle and its contents, while simultaneously initiating the process to obtain legal authorization for a search. This approach prioritizes preserving the integrity of the investigation by preventing tampering or loss of evidence. It aligns with the principles of lawful evidence gathering as stipulated by the Australian Capital Territory Act. Legislation, which mandates that searches of private property, including vehicles, generally require a warrant or specific legal exceptions. This ensures that any subsequent examination of the vehicle's contents is admissible in court and respects the individual's right to privacy. Incorrect approaches analysis. Delaying the securement of the vehicle and its immediate vicinity until a warrant is obtained is professionally unacceptable. This delay could allow for the destruction or removal of crucial evidence, severely hindering the investigation and potentially allowing a perpetrator to escape justice. It fails to acknowledge the immediate need to preserve potential evidence in a situation where criminal activity is suspected. Conducting a search of the vehicle without any legal authorization, even with the belief that evidence might be present, is a direct violation of privacy laws and the principles of lawful search and seizure under ACT law. This approach disregards the fundamental rights of the individual and could lead to the exclusion of any discovered evidence, rendering it useless for prosecution. Contacting a supervisor for advice, but then proceeding with a search based solely on the supervisor's informal instruction, without pursuing a warrant or confirming a specific legal exception, is also professionally unsound. While seeking guidance is important, it does not absolve the officer of their responsibility to act within legal parameters. This approach risks acting on potentially misinformed or incomplete advice, leading to a breach of legal requirements. Professional reasoning. Professionals in law enforcement must employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes legal compliance and ethical conduct. This involves a clear understanding of relevant legislation, such as the powers of search and seizure under ACT law, and the circumstances under which warrants are required. When faced with a situation where immediate action is necessary, officers should assess the urgency against the need for legal authorization. The framework should include steps for securing potential evidence while simultaneously initiating the legal process for further investigation, such as applying for a warrant. If immediate action is taken under a specific legal exception, the officer must be able to clearly articulate and justify that exception based on established legal principles. Seeking supervisory guidance is part of the process, but the ultimate responsibility for lawful action rests with the individual officer. Question 18. Comparative studies suggest that licensing authorities often face pressure to expedite the process for applicants who appear eager to drive. In the Australian Capital Territory Act, a licensing officer is assessing an applicant who is visibly nervous and struggles with parallel parking and indicating correctly during the practical driving test. The applicant also expresses some confusion about right-of-way rules at unmarked intersections. What is the most appropriate course of action for the ACT licensing officer? Option A. Accept the applicant's verbal assurance that they understand the right-of-way rules and have them sign a declaration acknowledging their responsibility to learn them, then proceed with the rest of the test. Option B. Allow the applicant to pass the test by overlooking the errors in parallel parking and right-of-way, focusing only on their ability to maintain basic control of the vehicle. Option C. Issue the driver's license with a warning about the observed deficiencies, trusting the applicant will improve with experience on the road. Option D. Defer the license application, clearly explaining to the applicant the specific areas of concern regarding their practical driving skills and knowledge of ACT road rules, and advising them on how to improve and rebook their test. The correct answer is D. Defer the license application, clearly explaining to the applicant the specific areas of concern regarding their practical driving skills and knowledge of ACT road rules, and advising them on how to improve and rebook their test. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for a driver's license with the paramount importance of road safety and adherence to the Australian Capital Territory Act, road rules and licensing requirements. The licensing process is designed to ensure that only competent and safe drivers are granted permission to operate a vehicle, thereby protecting all road users. Misrepresenting information or attempting to bypass established procedures undermines this critical safety objective. The correct approach involves a thorough and honest assessment of the applicant's driving ability and knowledge, strictly within the framework of the ACT's driver licensing regulations. This means ensuring the applicant meets all eligibility criteria, including demonstrating proficiency in operating a vehicle safely and understanding the ACT road rules. The licensing officer must verify the applicant's identity and any prerequisite qualifications, such as holding a learner's permit for the required duration, and then conduct an objective assessment of their driving skills and knowledge of road rules. This aligns with the ACT's commitment to road safety as outlined in the Road Transport, Driver Licensing Act 1999 and associated regulations, which mandate that licenses are only issued to individuals who have proven their competence and understanding of safe driving practices. An incorrect approach would be to overlook or downplay the applicant's struggles with specific maneuvers or their uncertainty regarding road rules, simply to expedite the process or out of sympathy. This failure to rigorously assess competence directly contravenes the ACT's licensing objectives, which prioritize public safety over convenience. Another incorrect approach would be to accept a verbal assurance of understanding without practical demonstration or written confirmation of knowledge, as this bypasses the established assessment methods designed to objectively measure a driver's capability. Furthermore, accepting documentation that is not fully compliant with ACT requirements, such as an incomplete or improperly verified learner's permit, would be a significant regulatory failure, potentially leading to an unqualified individual being licensed. Professionals in this role should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes regulatory compliance and public safety above all else. This involves a systematic evaluation of the applicant against all stipulated criteria, objective assessment of skills and knowledge, and a commitment to upholding the integrity of the licensing process. If an applicant does not meet the required standards, the professional decision is to defer or refuse the license, providing clear and constructive feedback on the areas needing improvement and guiding them on the correct pathway to reassessment. Question 19. The investigation demonstrates that a local community group in the Australian Capital Territory Act has proposed a minor alteration to a residential street, suggesting the removal of a single parking space to create a slightly wider turning radius for vehicles entering a private driveway. What is the most appropriate approach for the ACT Roads Authority to take in evaluating this proposal? Option A. Conduct a formal impact assessment, including traffic flow analysis, safety considerations for all road users, and consultation with relevant ACT government departments to determine the proposal's effect on the broader ACT road network and compliance with ACT road rules. Option B. Reject the proposal outright, citing the ACT's commitment to maintaining existing road infrastructure and parking availability without detailed consideration. Option C. Rely solely on the community group's description of the proposal and their assurance that it will not cause any issues. Option D. Approve the proposal immediately as it is a minor change requested by a local community group and is unlikely to cause significant disruption. The correct answer is A. Conduct a formal impact assessment, including traffic flow analysis, safety considerations for all road users, and consultation with relevant ACT government departments to determine the proposal's effect on the broader ACT road network and compliance with ACT road rules. Explanation. The investigation demonstrates the critical importance of a thorough and systematic approach to assessing the potential impact of a proposed road modification on the ACT road network. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the immediate benefits of the proposed change against potential broader, and sometimes unforeseen, consequences for traffic flow, safety, and the overall efficiency of the ACT's transportation system. A superficial assessment could lead to decisions that negatively impact a large number of road users and compromise the integrity of the existing infrastructure. The best professional practice involves a comprehensive impact assessment that considers all relevant factors and stakeholders. This approach, which aligns with the principles of responsible infrastructure development and road management in the Australian Capital Territory, requires a detailed analysis of traffic volumes, speed differentials, potential for congestion, pedestrian and cyclist safety, and the integration with existing traffic control devices and signage. It also necessitates consultation with relevant ACT government agencies, such as Transport Canberra and City Services, to ensure compliance with the ACT's Road Transport, Road Rules, Act 2017, and any relevant planning policies. This ensures that any proposed changes are not only functional, but also legally sound and contribute positively to the ACT's transport objectives. An incorrect approach would be to approve the modification based solely on the perceived convenience for a small group of users, without a broader assessment. This fails to uphold the duty of care to all road users and could lead to increased risks, contrary to the objectives of the ACT road safety strategy. Another incorrect approach is to dismiss the need for a formal assessment because the proposed change appears minor. Even small modifications can have cascading effects on traffic behavior and safety, especially in a densely used urban environment like the ACT. Ignoring the need for assessment is a failure to adhere to due diligence and best practice in road management. A further incorrect approach is to rely on anecdotal evidence or the opinions of a few individuals without undertaking objective data collection and analysis. While community feedback is valuable, it must be substantiated by evidence and integrated into a formal assessment process that considers the wider implications for the ACT road network. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that prioritizes a structured, evidence-based approach. This involves clearly defining the scope of the assessment, identifying all potential impacts, gathering relevant data, including traffic studies and safety audits, consulting with stakeholders, evaluating alternatives, and documenting the entire process. This systematic methodology ensures that decisions are informed, defensible, and aligned with the regulatory requirements and overarching goals of the ACT's transportation system. Question 20. Assessment of safe driving practices in the Australian Capital Territory Act requires drivers to understand stopping distances. If a driver is traveling at 80 km/h on a dry, well-maintained road surface and has an average reaction time of 1.5 seconds, what is the approximate total stopping distance? Assume a typical braking efficiency that results in a braking distance formula of /d braking equals \frac v 250 where \v is the speed in km/h, and the reaction distance is calculated as d reaction equals v times t where t is the reaction time in seconds. Option A, approximately 4 meters. Option B, approximately 120 meters. Option C, approximately 6 meters. Option D, approximately 4 meters. Correct answer is A, approximately 4 meters. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a common challenge for ACT road users, accurately calculating stopping distances under varying conditions. The professional challenge lies in applying theoretical knowledge to a practical, real-world situation where miscalculation can have severe consequences, including accidents and potential legal ramifications. The requirement to consider factors beyond simple speed, such as reaction time and road surface, necessitates a nuanced understanding of road safety principles as mandated by ACT road transport legislation. Correct approach analysis. The best approach involves systematically calculating the total stopping distance by summing the reaction distance and the braking distance, using the appropriate formulas and considering the given condition. This aligns with the ACT's emphasis on safe driving practices, which require drivers to anticipate and account for factors influencing their ability to stop safely. The ACT road rules and associated driver licensing materials provide guidance on these calculations, implicitly or explicitly promoting this method as the standard for safe stopping. This approach demonstrates a thorough understanding of the physics of motion and its application to road safety, ensuring a driver can maintain a safe following distance and react appropriately to hazards. Incorrect approaches analysis, One incorrect approach is to solely consider braking distance without accounting for the driver's reaction time. This fails to acknowledge that a driver needs time to perceive a hazard, decide to brake, and then initiate braking. This omission significantly underestimates the total stopping distance, leading to an unsafe following distance and an increased risk of collision, which contravenes the ACT's overarching goal of preventing road accidents. Another incorrect approach is to only consider reaction distance and ignore braking distance. This is fundamentally flawed as it assumes the vehicle stops instantaneously once the brakes are applied, which is physically impossible. This would lead to an unrealistically short stopping distance, again creating a dangerous situation and violating safe driving principles. A third incorrect approach is to use a simplified, arbitrary rule of thumb that does not account for the specific speed or road conditions. While some general rules of thumb exist, they are often insufficient for precise safety calculations and may not reflect the scientific basis for stopping distances. Relying on such approximations without understanding the underlying principles can lead to dangerous underestimations of stopping distance, especially at higher speeds or on less than ideal road surfaces, which is contrary to the ACT's evidence-based approach to road safety. Professional reasoning. Professionals should approach such calculations by first identifying all relevant variables: speed, reaction time, braking efficiency/road conditions. They should then apply the correct formulas, ensuring each component of the stopping distance is calculated accurately. This systematic process, grounded in the principles of physics and road safety legislation in the ACT, allows for a reliable assessment of safe stopping distances. This methodical approach ensures that decisions are based on sound calculations rather than guesswork or incomplete information, thereby upholding the highest standards of road safety.